Yo, what's up, everybody? This is Alex Auguste, and you're now tuned in to yet another evening of VividLife TV with yours truly. I'm your narrator tonight. We're going to be talking conversations, creativity, and community on another stream. You guys know how this goes. It's always a good time to have y'all. It's been a while. Like I'll be honest, it's been a while. We got a lot of catching up to do. But nonetheless, y'all, you guys know how I like to start the stream off. This is VividLife TV with Alex Auguste. Streaming live YouTube and Twitch. No TikTok tonight, but we're going to change that very, very soon. Like I said, there's a lot of updates for me to get to you guys, so bear with me. It's been a little while. It's been kind of hectic. It's been kind of crazy. But the thing that I keep saying, the thing that I've been repeating over and over and over for the last month and a half has been, these are good problems to have. I've been sharing that with everybody. And kind of what that means is, you know, there's some problems that come from bad situations, and then there's some problems that come with you're dealing with greatness. So that's just part of what comes with it, right? You're leveling up. No, yeah, it's a little rocky because you're going up an incline, you're on your way up. So it's a little bumpy. So good problems to have nonetheless. So I'm just gonna kind of dive into that. But before I do that, I want to know where y'all are checking in from, where y'all tuning in from. Always love having y'all on the streams. Always want to recommend that you guys jump into the chats with the conversations. Keep this thing rolling. Keep this thing very, very active. And of course, keep this on as much of an engaging level as possible. Today is Thursday, February 27th. Tonight's stream is called Dope Past February. We're going to talk about that. If you know where that's from, or if you recall where that's from, drop it in the chat. Let me see if you guys are really Vivid Life gang like that for real, or if you're just kind of passing through. Either way, let's make it a good night, man. So first things first, I got to give y'all just proof of life. Where have I been? What's been going on? Again, good problems to have. February has been absolutely stacked. Okay, well, first let's backtrack to January. I kind of like humbly told y'all about January in the sense of, you know, having videography projects, having projects. My birthday was in January. The phone lines were kind of going a lot in January in terms of, hey, we got this thing coming up in February. We'd love to have you as our chief storyteller to be able to tell the story of what we got going on. I had a birthday. I also had the 8th annual Collard Green Festival, which was really, really dope to attend and experience overall. And then there was just other projects that we were building up as we went. So it was a hectic month. January was a lot of building out what this was going to look like. Also building out my Discord community, building out my Patreon. And then February hit, and between just working on a job, right? Working a job, I work in sales, working a job, doing all this creative stuff. I was very much kind of like this, running with the blinders on, making sure that I can create as much as possible, deliver in a timely fashion, and really just keep my eye on the prize in terms of creating some stuff that just really not only serves for the current time being, but also serves for the future in a way that like is just super, super hella impactful. So I think one of the last streams I talked about the promotional video I did with the run club out here in Tampa, Rolling Proud Run Club. That was dope. We have been able to release that. And then it was, like I said, it was just go time. Every single weekend in the month of February, I have been busy. Good problems to have. Hashtag good problems to have. The first weekend had our first shoot with one of our clients on a Friday. Went really, really well. A little challenging, you know, learning a little bit on the fly as we went, but nonetheless, really, really good. The second week, I had a 2-for-1, both that Collard Green Festival as well as a birthday party. That third week had the Gasparilla Distance Classic, which was me running a 5K. If you're new here, if you haven't known, I'm a runner. Used to be a track star. But you know, running running and active, and this being one of the largest races that I've ever ran in was just crazy. If you have questions about what that experience was like, let me know. It was it was hectic. It was really, really dope, but really, really hectic. I was able to get a good time in. I actually ended up running just 10 seconds slower than my PR. So this past Gasparilla was my third fastest 5K on record, at least. Which I'm not mad at. It was a good effort. It was kind of chilly. I'm not making excuses. It was kind of chilly. It was a little bit of a different run, and I was running fast as hell. Just trying to get through as much of it as possible. But that cold air, that cold weather started hitting, and your boy was there was a point where I was fighting for my life. So you hate to have that happen, but it is what it is. Good race nonetheless. And something that someone has brought to my attention is that I've kind of stopped posting about my running journey. And again, this goes back to proof of life. This goes back to a lot of the slowdown on content. This goes to even slow down with these streams and just the speed at which I can produce and create and keep these things going. I'm gonna keep it transparent with y'all. I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. This past July, I went on a cruise on Virgin Voyages. I was having a great time. You guys know that I'm a trivia guy, and I dropped my phone winning the trivia contest, the first trivia contest that I won on the Virgin cruise. When I picked up my phone, there was a small little like LED LCD leak in the bottom left-hand corner. It had no impact on the phone whatsoever. I barely noticed it the first time. Since then, that leak has gradually grown over and over and over time. It's not much, it's not as far as you would think it would be. The phone has lasted very, very long, but I've now lost a lot of functionality in my phone. So that's been a big challenge. And so I joked about it on my Instagram story the other day that while I was running my 5K, my phone called 911. It called 911, right? I just was able to get it right where it was like didn't fully go through, maybe because it was so many people in the area. They never called back. So as far as I know, we were good. We didn't have to deal with none of that. But that's been a big part of the slowdown of creating content, right? I don't trust my phone to use the phone camera in the same way. And also I'm not editing, on InShot and CapCut on my phone like I was anyway. So it's different. It's a big challenge. We're in a new space right now. It is what it is. So that's kind of where a little bit of where the distraction has been. We've been creating a lot on our more professional camera and vlogging and things like that. The process to getting that content out has been a little challenging and a little different. So bear with me. We're still here. The live streams are coming back. We're live right now on, like I said, YouTube and Twitch, and we've just been keeping that going, and just keeping that energy. This is the last week of February, so going back to that whole like every weekend of February piece being busy. And I have yet another project tomorrow that I'm actually really, really both nervous about in the best way possible, and then also really excited about. If y'all want to know about what that is, I'll let you know, but you got to ask, right? I can only respond to what I'm being asked of. So tonight's stream, it is Black History Month. It has been Black History Month for the last 26 days. And I can admit that I've been a little quiet on the content part of that, right? I've never really truly been someone who's done a lot of Black history content of posting. I've done it before, and I've done great like streams, and I've done great posts in the past, but it's just something that I've kind of slowed down on a little bit over the years because I find just new ways to appreciate Black history and our ancestors. And I'm also, as I'm growing older and I've heard so many different pieces of discussion, I'm always kind of thinking about, well, how does one celebrate Black history when you want to move away from Black history being, kind of the way it's packaged in the US, like packaged with this experience of chattel slavery and segregation and Jim Crow. and overcoming the challenges of the past. Like, how do you do that? And so I've been thinking about that for at least the last like 6 or 7 years. Again, if you know where the phrase "dope past February" comes from, drop it in the comments. But I've been kind of avoiding and just exploring what that looks like over the last several years. And along with that, in the last several years, I also started writing books. So this is where it kind of becomes this thing of like, well, how do you do this? How do you like honor Black history? How do you commemorate Black history or celebrate Black history? And my breakdown or my analysis is that I don't necessarily look to celebrate Black history. And I think we can all agree about this. I don't look to celebrate Black history in the month of February, right? I think it's a little different. What I try to do is I focus on a topic or an area that I can say that I'm growing in my acknowledgement, and I'm growing in my knowledge of it. I'm growing in how I recognize that. I'm growing in all these kinds of things. I love the fact that Black history comes right before Women's History Month, because it gets a really good segue to be able to say that, we could lift voices of female business owners, female creatives, politicians, Black women in general. This is that space right around when you kind of jump the fence into March. You can do that, right? So that was one year that I really focused on that. In 2023, getting ready to kick off the production for the Perfectionist music video, I wanted to have and make sure that I had all women on that project, which I ended up being able to successfully do. So it's little things like that that I try my best to focus on in the overall process. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Dope Past February and really get into the nitty gritties of that. And then I'm also going to kind of rant a little bit on that front too, because I do have a bit of a rant, but we'll get to that. But as y'all are tuning in, y'all, just want to remind you guys, as you're dropping in and checking out the stream, feel free to subscribe, check out videos from me that drop. I'm currently working on my February recap. There was so much that took place in February. I'd be remiss if I didn't give y'all a solid blog or recap or whatever the case. There's also been a lot of growth, little stuff. This is actually now my new carrying case for my camera, for my DJI Pocket Osmo. I love this thing. I don't know what it is about a more solid body case that works for me. The previous one that I had was a little bit more molded and more foldable. I would open it and shit would fall out, and that's not good, right? You don't ever want to lose a small piece of camera equipment like an SD card or the lid to like an SD port or something like that. So definitely want to make sure I keep that secure. But as we go on with this conversation, I'll talk a little bit more about, again, creating that content. And it's been a busy month. I've been networking my ass off as well. And something that I said a couple days ago, actually, and I've started to really feel this. And if you are either a creative or a business owner, entrepreneur, or just a professional in general, let me know, because this has been something that I have just recently come across. I'm starting to really not like networking events. So I want to know what y'all thoughts are on networking events. It's not that networking events are bad. Let's take the events part out of it. Maybe we keep the events part in and it's the networking. I don't know, but there's something in the blend of overall networking events that I am now discovering is extremely not my cup of joe. Like, I love meeting people. I do. I love meeting people. I love chopping it up. I love talking to people about things that they're passionate about, and I love talking about things that I'm passionate about. Somehow, some way, when it's more organic, it feels better to your boy. You know what I mean? It feels greater in a sense Whereas when it's packaged, oh, when it's okay, there we go. When it's packaged as this networking event thing, that's just where I'm like, I get so tired. I get actually extremely exhausted by the idea of going to networking events. Like, I went to one recently and I legitimately had to take the world's deepest sigh before going in. And maybe what the challenge with that is, I've never been like that. I've just walked into networking events and been like, oh, what up? What up? Hey, what's up? Grab business cards. Yeah, I'm gonna hit you up. All that kind of stuff. I think now that it's like, I don't know, maybe my expectations have just changed. Like, networking events are very draining. The last three have been absolutely exhausting. I'm getting tired thinking about it, right? And so I don't know. I don't know if that's just the world we live in now. I think people are more direct in a way where it's just like, so much about networking is kind of the vibes, right? It's like, vibe check, you didn't really pass it. I don't know. The way you talked about your business or the way you talked about a problem. I was talking to a gentleman today, I believe, and he's telling me about how, he works for corrections department um, in a certain state, and he starts talking about how great it is that they pay them like $1 and some change. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, well, it's great. We paid them $1 and some change. They should be glad because they have somewhere to stay, and they've got meals and clothes. And I'm like, you mean jail, bro? Like, what are you talking about? So it's just one of those things. Like, you get the vibe, and you're just like, you gotta find a way to slowly fade away and things like that. So I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I've been sensing that over time, that like, I prefer just very organic conversations with people. I prefer very organic interactions, whereas networking doesn't always feel that way, and it's always not packaged that way, and it's not always done with people who share that same that same insight. So the fact that I went to an event the other day, shout out to Imani Lens, by the way. And it wasn't a networking event, and everyone there mentioned how glad they were that it wasn't. So I feel like that should tell us all something very important about the fact that we all really probably don't like networking. Like, we don't like it. It's okay. So that's just something to consider. But in networking with other creatives, I started to pull this together, and this is just, open format conversation right now in terms of just talking about conversation, right? Is people who always ask this number one question that I always get. The number one question that I always seem to get, both online in DMs, is still, how do I stay consistent? And this piece is kind of interesting. If you're a creative, if you know a creative, if you're just active on social media, feel free to chime in. I'd love to see and hear what your answers are in terms of this question of, how do I stay consistent? Number one, and I always kind of lead with this, is like, what do we consider to be consistent, right? I don't post posts to the feed. I hate when you gotta repeat words like that. I don't usually drop a new post to my feed every day. In fact, I can't say that I do that at all. Like, I don't post every single day. I definitely start my day with maybe a couple story posts, just to kind of get it from there, and then maybe just, expand from there or something like that. But my question back to that is always, what do we consider to be consistent? I don't post every day. um what I look to do is just try to be as impactful as possible, or really to just have my digital shit together, if you will, right? Is just having a page that says what I need to say, and having the back end stuff all make sense, so that when volume does pick up, it's like it's connected and it's all consistent with my messaging, my brand, my vision, my mission, things like that. And maybe what people see is just this idea of, well, it does all mesh, it all does feel consistent in the language, in the vision, in the branding, and maybe that's what consistency is, what they're calling. But I don't consider to myself to be consistent. I actually say that I could be way more consistent. I could be much better at managing my content overall. So what I'm kind of pointing to is this idea that, like, we start to look at other people's social media and their branding and all of this, and we spend so much time comparing, or kind of looking at it and saying, wow, like, damn it, I wish I was like that, and I feel like when you do that, you will create the excuse you need to hear to feel better about why you're not doing it. It's like, with running, I run an 852, 856, somewhere in that little 4-second range. I run a 856 5K. And for the folks who run an 833 or less, I can easily be, oh, well, the reason why they're running that pace is because they're 5 pounds lighter than me, or they're this, or they've been running longer. They've been long distance runners longer than me. Da 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 da. You can come up with all of these excuses, but at the end of the day, it's like, are you running? Like, are you running your best race? That's it. Like, there's no consistency in social media. There is, right? But consistency is relative. That's going to be my message on that. Like, every time someone asks me how I stay consistent, consistency is relative, right? Do you need to post content every single day? It would be absolutely to all of our benefit to do so. But, does that mean that that's the formula? It might not be, because what are your goals? If you want to post content every day, then my suggestion would just be to shoot every day. I've done that before for the most part. And even in shooting every day, I never posted everything to the feed. It's been stories. Like, my Instagram stories are where I blossom. That's where all of my stats are. So I say that to say that what is missed in all of those conversations is the other side of the question, which is like the question no one ever asks, which is like, hey, what challenge do you typically overcome in your creative process? I know that's like a super specific question, but like, what challenges do you have? Like, wow, you're so good at what you do. What challenges do you have? That question is going to open up so much more conversation than like, how do you stay so consistent? Like, no. My challenges, oh, bro, like, you're asking me a very important question that I also have to be very transparent about. And I think for me, my biggest challenge is uniformity, in my opinion. I think sometimes my content doesn't feel as uniform across platforms. My branding sometimes doesn't even feel as uniform across platforms. And I know the solution to that problem, so it's not the worst. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's definitely something I gotta work on and I gotta fix. But like, no one ever asks, right? And so when you go to network with folks who are all worried about how you're doing better than them, and we're not ever talking about like, hey, where are you and where am I? What are your challenges? What challenge do you have that I can solve for you? Networking just becomes this like looping conversation of of shit like that no one is solving and no one is benefiting from. It's just, how are you so consistent? The only answer to that is, hey man, you just got to shoot the content, bro. You just got to shoot the content, figure out a way to edit it as fast as possible, get it out. Because guess what? There are people who shoot content consistently and still fall into that whole perfectionism thing and then end up not posting their content. So that's that. I'm saying all of that to say that, like, these are the things that drain me. Okay. These are the things that drain me in conversation. And the solution that I've really been trying to get people to understand is that if you want to talk to people about problems, you have to be ready for them to talk to you about solutions. Sometimes that's not always comfortable, number one. And number two, you also have to be willing to follow them to a path that conversation even makes sense to begin with. Right? We are at a bar at some place at some networking event, and we're talking about problems and solutions, and I'm going to give you solutions to your problems, and then we're going to walk away. That in of itself is draining, because I just gave you a 5-minute discovery call and gave you away just information, right? If you trust me enough to talk to me about your problems, then trust me enough to follow me to the place where I solve that. And that to me is where Discord and your Patreons and these communities that everyone is building, that to me is where that is solved. That is what those are for. Like, with the onset of the TikTok ban, with all of the conversations that surrounded that and everyone being online, see, this is the importance of having a community. This is the importance of having a community. Like, with all of those conversations, how many communities were formed? Like, and damn, this is a stream of consciousness, by the way, but this is gonna blend so perfectly. Okay, this is gonna blend so perfectly. But yeah, like, we talked about how important it was to build communities, and yeah, build a community online. We need community. This word community is thrown around in nearly every sphere of social media right now. Run clubs, community; dating, community; growing your own food, community; supporting Black business, community; all of this stuff, community. Everyone keeps talking about communities and they're not building them. Like, they're not building the infrastructure for community. We're talking about the problem. We're not talking about the solutions. We're not following the people to the solutions. We're not following the people to the groups, to the circles, to the communities that have the solutions to these problems. Like, we're just talking. We're just networking. You know what I mean? And that to me is where it's like, get on the train, yo. Get on it. TikTok is a shell of what it used to be. And that's crazy, because we've only experienced this post TikTok ban era. I don't know what you guys want to call it, but we've only been in that for just over a month. And everyone, I don't know if you all feel it, but it's very different on TikTok. I saw large network on my, large networks on my For You page, and ads for certain things that I just never saw. The ads for big corporations are now masking the ads for small creators and small businesses, and it's the news is different. I'm not seeing my general skinwalker and CCTV scary videos anymore. I'm seeing news and official corporate content. It's different. It's different, right? All right, cool. You want that sense of community, bruh. Build a community. You want to network with people who will listen to your problems and give you quick spiels on how to solve it. Okay, join a community. Join their community. sign up for their Patreon, all that kind of stuff. Right now, we are in a very new space. I'm not even going to get into that. We're in a very new space, politically, economically, all this kind of stuff. The worst way to go to take the road is to take the road alone. And that's on every front, right? You're a creative and you're tired of creating alone, join a community, right? Follow the people who you've talked to about your problems. Follow them to the place where problems are solved. That's as good as I could put it. And that's why, to me, networking is so draining. You meet creatives, you meet business owners and entrepreneurs, and of course there's a whole nother part about follow up and all that kind of stuff, all that. But you're meeting people to talk about how hard it is to do something, and then you don't follow up, and then you don't. Where do we go from there, right? Okay, coffee, like, can we discovery call, can we schedule something, like, let's go. So I don't know, that's really where my mind was in the month of February, because I attended quite a bit of events, networking. I've had quite a bit of conversations. But I'll also say a thing that I'm really, really proud of too as well, which is, in all of that, I've had a lot of people come to me and just let me know that they recognize my work. That's dope. Recognize my work and recognize the quality of work that it is, right? When I set out to originally start designing what Marvel World was going to look like and feel like, my idea was that every video was going to end like very dramatically with Marvel World. Just the video, just Marvel World. Then I thought about, well, it should start with Marvel World. And then for a very long time, I ended the videos with Marvel World. And remembering that, there's a very good chance that everyone doesn't make it to the end of the video. Let's put it back at the beginning. Um, there's just something about when folks see that logo, and I'm like, that's something that you just figure out as a creative, that it's just like, wow, like, I'm glad I thought about that. I'm glad there's intentionality behind that, that when that video starts and those letters show up, like, they know they're gonna feel something. So that's pretty, to have people kind of recognize me for that is pretty dope. Um, but yeah, there's more to it. Um, Not only just more to it, but there's a lot of good feeling to that, and having your work speak for you in rooms is dope, man. It's for real dope. But want to kind of check back to see what you guys think about that topic about community. Have y'all joined Discords? I have a Discord channel. That wasn't necessarily a shameless plug, as much as it was just oof, oof, just a kind of overall discussion on community, for real, for real. If you are having a hard time in life and you believe that your life would be, better suited or better comforted by, you know, closing the gap between you and your walk with Christ, and you're talking to a priest, like, at some point it'd be like, well, why don't you just join his church, or why don't you at least visit his church, or whatever the case may be. If you're having legal issues and you're talking to an attorney about your legal issues, why wouldn't you follow them to their practice? You know what I mean? Why wouldn't you follow them to their firm? Hey, let's follow up. Can you help me through this? To me, it's like, that is overall how all of this kind of works itself out. If we're talking to creatives about creativity, why aren't we following creatives to where they their lair where they crawl into the hole and like create it. That's where the magic happens. Um, and as a creator, why why are we creating alone? You know what I'm saying? So with my Discord's called Worldwide. Um, the focus is really to just build enough community to be supported by our interest and our our peaked interest in music, movies, and creating. Right? I use music and movies because those are the two things that have always inspired me to create. I've always been a music head. I listen to music all the time. I listen to hundreds and hundreds of hours of music throughout a month, year. If I remember my Spotify rap, it's pretty high number. And I also love crate digging. Like, new music is cool, but I love discovering new music, and I'll revisit that whole thing about trending audio and trending audio on social media. But I really love like discovering new music and just falling in love with something. I pay well, I don't. I pay for YouTube Premium, so, or YouTube Music, whatever it's called. So I pay like 13. I pay 13.99 to have all of human history's music that has ever been uploaded to the internet and is available. I can listen to the first heartbeat if I wanted to for 13.99. You goddamn right. I'm listening to some Beethoven every now and then. Right? You absolutely right that I'm going to discover some new music from Motown era 1960s. I want to hear George Clinton's first song from when he was in a barbershop quartet. Right? I want to listen to all of that. Right? So I love finding new music to just absolutely fall in love with. Movies, that's a great conversation starter. I love talking about movies all the time. So there's a peaked interest in that. But also, I feel as though social media does not recognize itself enough, and creatives who use social media don't recognize enough that, to an extent, so many of us are teetering on the line of official camera people, cinematographers, filmmakers, directors of photography. Like, it's right there. It is right there. You're writing skits. Oh, okay. You're recording skits where you play multiple people on the skit, even if it's a joke. Like, you're so close. And to me, music supports that as well as film. So that's where my interests are, is how to be better as a videographer, how to be better as a creative. I use film as like, oh, I love that shot, and I try to recreate that in some of my work. So that's where that is. But then there's also the part where there's just a resource share, right? Being able to share resources between creatives and, social media users, whatever you want to call it, where it's just like, hey, you may not know this, but rather than spending, and I'm gonna give a freebie, a nugget for a nugget, please drop a nugget in the comments. But you're spending hours creating a presentation. Why don't you use an AI called Gamma? Right? And yeah, oh man, you could get, sponsored by Gamma. I could. But I'm telling you the solution to your problem. Use Gamma. Don't worry about me getting paid later on. Use Gamma, okay? Use Gamma to use AI to quickly create very gorgeous presentations. It'll save you a lot of time, and people will be in awe by your choice of AI imaging that looks really good, really branded, and absolutely professional. Like, just use it. Bam, there you go. We can worry about me getting paid later. You have a problem that you brought to me, and I'm absolutely like, yeah, cool. Now that was the conversation between you and I. I gave you a nugget because there's credibility and there's a relationship being built. But if you don't join the community, I got to charge you for consulting. And that's not going to feel like community. So, and this, again, this goes back to, I immediately think of what I was talking about earlier. And let me know if I'm tripping. Like if I'm wilding, let me know. I'm very open to hearing, that I'm wilding. But this goes back to, really our conversation about create not creativity, about community and about Black History Month. And so let's go into the conversation about community because we talked about creativity. Now it's about community. And going back to what I mentioned earlier about Black History Month, it is not at all a thing. I actually don't even resonate with the idea that people say that, we got the shortest month out of all that kind of stuff. I don't really resonate with that because Carter G. Woodson chose, he's the kind of the father of Black History Month. Carter G. Woodson is. And it's not like it was given to us, right? It's not like they were like, oh, look, you guys are now like integrated, like segregation's ended, Jim Crow's ended, we're post-racial. Let's give these guys a month. Well, all that we have available is a February. I can give you maybe a March by next Friday. It didn't happen like that, right? It was selected for a particular reason, one that I don't know off the back of my hand, but I do know that it was selected, not given, right? No one gave us the month of February. It was chosen that this would be the month. And also, I don't know about y'all, but February feels like purple. Purple feels like royalty. Royalty feels black. So I'm cool with February being Black History Month. I can't think of any other month that genuinely in my brain feels like Black History Month. I don't know why, but my brain associates every month with colors. And maybe that's a thing from our childhood, but like April feels like yellow. March feels like a very light hue of blue. May is definitely, ooh, what is May? May is like maybe a darker, I don't know, a darker purple. June is like an orange hue. It's in the orange family. July might be either brighter or darker. August is, whoa, man, I don't know what August is. I used to have this pretty down pat. My bad. I'm rolling, but now I'm stuck. September is red. I don't know why. I don't know what it is, but September is red. Um, October is black, or October is orange. No, October is black or brown. November is orange. December is either white or blue. Yeah. I don't know how my brain thinks of those months like that. Maybe it's like maybe when you're younger, there's a calendar that you looked at that had all of those like names in certain fonts and certain colors. I don't know. But I know that February to me in my brain, January is white, by the way. January is white for sure. And February is purple. And again, purple somehow feels like Black history. Can't even explain it. Maybe it was something I saw in UPN or something back in the day. I don't know. But with that, it's just, to me, that's number one. I know that was a long ass tangent, but uh to me, I don't look at Black history as, this thing that we have to celebrate where we only commemorate Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Rosa Parks and, Jesse Owens, and we got to call out the heroes. I also don't look at it as something where we have to dig up heroes that weren't necessarily recognized as heroes. Your Nat Turners, your W.E.B. Du Bois, your Frederick Douglasses, your Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, uh Elano Equiano. Like I don't look at it as like that. I think my request of myself, or something that I've just thought about over the years, is how are we contributing to Black history today? That is the question. Like, that is legitimately every day I think of that. It's like, Cool. We don't like how short Black History Month is, but how do we make Black history happen beyond February 28th? I can tell you who invented the washing machine on June 22nd. I can tell you about Lewis Latimer on September 14th. We can, excuse me, we can talk about The Talented 10th by E.B. Du Bois, W.E.B. Du Bois, on the 10th of every month for the rest of the year. How are we contributing to Black history? And then, more importantly, before I talk about we, how am I contributing to Black history? That is a question that is more important in my mind than anything about 28 days, what month makes sense, why do white people keep, complaining about not having White History Month. How am I contributing to Black history every day of my life? Like, we talk about Black excellence. We share moments that feel like Black excellence. We share moments that are about Black excellence. We share moments that look like they pretty damn good, representation of Black excellence. Wonderful. How do I do that? How do I become Black excellence? How do I join in on what's happening that feels like Black excellence? Right. And this phrase that I came up with, I'll tell you guys where it came from. Dope past February. Right. Very ironic that all of this DEI stuff is happening, because I was working at a job a couple of years ago, and there were not a lot of Black people at this job. It's primarily a white job. And there was not actually any reason for that. I genuinely believe that the job didn't sound attractive. Okay. It didn't sound attractive to a lot of people in this area that would, say, hey, I'm looking for a job. I'm looking for something, to get into. And I want to make absolutely great money. And one, it was a sales job. So that's going to knock out a whole bunch of people. And the pay was a little lower than market. But what they could not tell you was that there was so much bonuses and commission to be made. Like a lot, right? They didn't really say that. Okay. Had a little bit of a mic issue there. But check 1 2 1 2. All right, cool. So I'm just laying out that this was just a small company that was growing, and in that growth, it was very messy. It was startup. It was very messy. It was all over the place. I happen to feel like that was a great place for me to grow, and I was also at a point in my career where I was very much like, I'm ready to grow, and honestly, if you put me in the right soil, I'll grow the hell out of everything around me, and I'll put some roots down that will help everything around me grow. And so I joined this company, and I was probably all of one of 3 or 4 Black people. That number would fluctuate between a 3 and a 4 and a 2. And I think at one point, very small point, it was 1, just me, right? out of maybe 75 or 85 or 100. These numbers are not crazy, right? They're not. There's a lot of companies that are like this, and I'm not defending it by any means. I'm just saying that, like, don't sound shocked if I say I was the only black person in a company that had 120 people. That is not rare, okay? And so in that, they obviously created like a spirit committee and a spirit team, and they would have months that they recognized certain things. They had, Latino Heritage Month, Spanish Heritage Month. They had, at one point they even did something Hawaiian, like Hawaiian Heritage Month. And I looked around the room very quietly, and I realized that there were no Hawaiian people and no Asian Pacific people in the room. So I was like, that's a little odd. Okay, great. We also, this is the first job that I ever had where we didn't have Martin Luther King Day off, which was, it was like, oh, okay. So I was in the building while the parade was happening outside, literally outside the building we were in. This is in St. Petersburg. So right outside the door, you go on a lunch break and it's the MLK parade. And so when February came around, I did not speak up about it because I didn't know that they were going to do anything. And I was maybe a little curious, but I was also coming off of a very low month. So I was zoned in on getting these sales going. And for the month of February, they recognized something else. And it was completely left field from anything. And part of me was just like, that, it's one of those, like, that felt weird. Okay, that's weird. Like, Black History Month was right there. And I think at this point there were probably 4 to 6 black people working. I think the most amount of black people that had ever worked there were working there at that point. And it was like, you didn't go with Black History Month. That's weird. That's a little weird. Okay. But so rather than kind of bringing it to their attention, I just decided to, at the time I was operating my merchandise line that was then called Tags by Marvel and now called Vivid Life Apparel. And I decided that, I was going to create this phrase called Dope Past February to kind of say, like, you forgot, right? Y'all forgot, but let's not forget, like, we exist outside of that month. And for me, how I was even honoring that and kind of being my own example of Black History Month was that I was also leading the boards in sales. So at the end of the month, right around the 27th, like a today of the month, I had already had the shirt printed and I came to work with it. Very kind of my own design of like black letters and very Afrocentric, like that Martin do the right thing style design. And I wore it to work. Dope Past February. And as soon as folks saw it, they kind of knew what it was, right? All the black coworkers, they knew what it was. They were like, yo, I like that. And people outside, yo, I like that. And people online, yo, I like that. That's really dope. I like that concept. Dope Past February. And so the number one selling piece of merchandise in the store was anything that said Dope Past February. T-shirts, hoodies. I even tried to go even further with it, maybe get y'all a dashiki. No, I'm playing. I didn't try to do that. But I was trying to just figure out how to take it further, to which I got to a point where I was like, it has to go further than the merch. Going back to the intentionality, is like, well, I kind of want to think of participating and contributing to Black history in real time with real people who have real stories. And so Dope Past February became kind of an anchor of like, all right, well, and this is actually kind of interesting because this is where the storyteller piece came in. with Marvel World and me just being storyteller at the time. This was like 2021, 2022 probably, or 2021. I was interviewing people to be the first class of like dope past February. These are people who exemplify this, and let's talk about them. A lot of the people, unfortunately, that I had selected, this was just me being a little eager. I didn't realize that what I was trying to get them to do was a very big time commitment in all of that. And so many of the people could not participate at all. One person could not participate because he was secretly on a game show. Not a game show. It's not a game show, but he was on a show. And him being on the show prevented him from participating because they had like a non-compete kind of NDA. You're not allowed to be popular or famous and mention that you were on this show. If you know, you know. So it just kind of foiled the whole thing. And once again, now in the past year, having been at a different company, and as we have grown into a world of DEI, and the post George Floyd kind of situation, I feel like prior to 2024, when all of this started, the whole CRT and DEI, and America loves a good abbreviation to hate, right? Kind of as that was starting to kind of fuel up, it's like the thought came back in my mind of, how do we do this? How do we, not just me, not just dope past February, but how do we do this? Like, and I talk shit about them all the time. I don't care. But like The Voyage, right? You do something with like The Voyage. By the way, The Voyage has already interviewed me, y'all. Or let me correct myself. I've already interviewed myself and submitted it to The Voyage, and they've sent again to me to interview myself and then send to them based on their availability in mine. And I'm like, do y'all not have records of who y'all have? Whatever. So I'm very big on if you're gonna get journalistic, if you're gonna get journalistic, get journalistic. If you're gonna do interviews, do interviews. And so I'm saying all that to say that I do really do believe that the next big step with Marvel World, the next big step with what we got going on, the next big step with just the overall my own brand, even if it is not a part of Marvel World, is to really highlight and celebrate people in the community and talk about how they are participating and contributing in Black history. I don't believe that there is such thing as us not doing so. I don't think there's such thing as like individuals in today's world, in our world today, in our society today, in our country, in our diaspora right now, that just are doing nothing. Like, people will always immediately, oh, well, as long as there's a sexy red, we can't progress. I don't believe that is true. I actually don't believe that's true at all. I think if you want to see sexy red, you see sexy red. If you want to see people in your local community who are doing grassroots movements and fundraising and getting grants, from the government, and being approved for grants and really doing some groundbreaking shit, you'll see that, because that's closer to you than sexy red. I don't know. That's just my thought. But how we do that is another thing that we can definitely like focus on and build up. But I think this is a little bit of a passion project that I very much welcome feedback on, and very much welcome overall just input and just actually just allowing people to get into the inside of that to see what it looks like. Because I can do a dope past February, and I think everyone can do a dope past February. It doesn't even have to be called that. I'm gonna come up with a really cool name for it. But I think that this should be something that we all think about. Like, bro, how are we? What will history say about me when I'm gone? What will I do? What am I doing now that is contributing? And I had a conversation with one of my boys the other day, and he kind of really broke down his vision and his mission. And I was like, I like that. He talked about influence, that some people don't even know that they don't know what their influence could do or could be. They just know they have an audience, and anyone with an audience is both blessed and burdened to have a platform that they can connect directly with people. And I think that's definitely something that I've always thought about with VividLife TV is like, I want to use this as a way to directly and instantaneously and in real time connect with people, but also it'd be something that I can connect with people on the back end. And so again, we're blessed and burdened with the idea that you have a platform to be able to connect with people, blessed and burdened to have the wherewithal to build communities, to invite people to learn, to grow, to challenge themselves, to challenge you, to challenge whatever it is you want to challenge, right? Sometimes there ain't no challenge at all. Let's, whatever. But that is number one, good problems to have, going back to that. And then that's also just the dope part about being intentional with connecting with people. So he talked about helping people build their influence, because the more people who we can help build their influence, the more people we have who are influential, and that's how you strike change. And I was like, oh man, damn, I'm glad you've thought about it that deeply. I'm glad you thought about it with that much intention. um and so that was really, really cool. Me as a storyteller, whose story can we highlight, right? It's always about like, whose story can we highlight, and then how do we tell that story? And so while I've done a birthday party this month, I've also had the pleasure of going to that collard green festival out in St. Petersburg and just really having a conversation that was absolutely insane to capture on footage. Working with the company, the Modern Griot Corporation, and talking about their storytelling of how they've inspired like a large group of St. Pete's youth in a way that just absolutely, I mean, it's insane. They helped these kids come together and pulled information out of them about wellness and about being in their environment and being in their world and the world that they want to see, and then publishing that as a book that all of those kids can be credited in. So you now have like a group of 30 kids who can all say like, we're co-authors of a book that's been published about both our experience as well as this philosophy and this methodology about bringing wellness to the community. Crazy, bro, like crazy. So just being able to tell that story, being able to be part of that story and capturing it in a way that's like, bruh, like, I don't worry about how we celebrate Black History Month. I don't worry about if it's enough days, because it's 28 to 29 days out of 365. Do the math. That's a good percentage. Okay. And we're all taking part in that. Do y'all want to know what happens on June 14th? Hmm? 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 Do y'all know what June 14th is? Hmm? June 14th is American Flag Day. It is one day out of the year where everyone should have their American flag out and waving it and doing all that little stuff and all that kind of stuff. And no one does. You don't even hear about an American flag sale, or American that flag, Flag Day furniture sale at David's Bridal. Like you don't hear about that. Everyone wears their flag on July 4th, right? But I'd rather have 28 to 29 days to do whatever it is we wish to do with all of our purple and our red and green and black and all that kind of stuff. Whatever it is that you want to do, you got 28 to 29 days to do it. I'd rather have that an entire month than a day or nothing at all. So, hey, that's that. All right. But I've talked a little bit. I wonder what you guys are thinking, and I want to hear from the chat. I'm actually gonna just turn this camera off really quick so I can let this annoying ass cat named Mango in this room real quick. Give me 1 second. That's y'all best friend. So yeah, interested to know what you guys think. I'm actually thinking of a phrase, and it just kind of came to my mind. Don't know if I'll go with that, but yeah, I think that's a dope thing to do, man. And I don't know, we just got to do a thing. I'm so tired of both sides. Like on one side, you have 28 days is not enough. We got the shortest month. They gave us the shortest month, and then the other side, you have like, well, how would you feel if we had a White History Month? And it's like, read the room. Read the room. But yeah, yeah, I just think of the intentionality of all that, man, and just that to me is really what I think about. Speaking of communities, I will just kind of drop this in here that I do have a Discord channel, like I mentioned. If you're interested in joining, we have a number of different interests. We have a number of different just kind of avenues and channels that you can participate in. Specifically, if you're interested in content creation or being a creator in general, I highly recommend you join our Content House channel. That is the channel specifically around your brand, your content. What do you want to be better at? What do you want to grow in? How do you want to grow? And everything under the sun in regards to that. So we have some we had some comments in the chat, but ain't nobody gonna give you a spammer like Twitch, baby. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Even Cavern. All right, thanks. But yeah, if you want to join that channel, we also do voice channels. We chat. There's a lot of community happening in there, watching movies. We're actually watching for the month of March. I've compiled a list of movies with female leads, movies with strong female leads, and female leads in general, women leads in general. Female lead feels weird. And maybe it's because I don't like saying female, right? I don't like saying female. It's too scientific, right? With actresses, with lead actresses, there you go. We don't say actress anymore either. Everything is actor now. I don't know if y'all picked up on that, but yeah, I've chosen a list of movies with lead actresses, and I've been randomly selecting movies from that list to be part of our uncasual moviegoers live watch party. That's a little bit of a long one, but it's cool. Uncasual goers is it actually started off as an Instagram channel that I was going to do to talk about movies, and I always talk about what's the best movie at the end of the year. But I've decided to since move that into the Discord channel so that more people can take part, more people can have conversations about that, and at the end of the year, that voting is more unanimous and kind of more open to voting that is beyond just myself. So in there, we talk about movies. The idea is that being able to recently did the movie discussion about Captain America, The Brave New World. Everyone got an opportunity to have their piece, talked about it, debated about it. They rated the movie. Some people loved it. Some people didn't like it at all. Some people felt it was weak. Some people are still asking why they added that young lady who represents an ex-IDF soldier. Bad choice. Absolutely bad choice. I agree with that idea. And she was also a weak character nonetheless. But on Tuesday, March 4th, we're going to be watching The Call starring Halle Berry. So if you want to be in there, if you want to kind of take part and just join in a lot of the mix, be part of the conversations, get to know people, grow with people. And like I said, get into that creativity zone. Feel free to join, hit that link in the QR code, and we welcome you all in, man. There's rules, so just follow the rules. So yeah, outside of that as well, while I have this final 15 minutes, let's just see where I'm at. Make sure we're good to go. Give me 1 second. Let me just send out a text message. Huh. Oh, there we go. There is one final update that I got to give you guys. Speaking of storytellers, speaking of the whole 9 yards, Alex Auguste, Alex the Storyteller, am pretty much proud to announce that I am finally ready to release a story that is very near and dear to me called The Black Grasshopper. The Black Grasshopper represents the very first story that I had wrote almost 10 years ago. Literally, y'all, as a journal entry. At the time, I was going through a lot personally. The weight of the world kind of weighing down on me. That feeling of like, hey, postgraduate depression, as they call it, finishing school and getting out of that zone and trying to figure out what my next life step was going to be, having had made a mistake, and just really wanting to feel like my feet were 10 toes down on the ground. I sat down to essentially write this story that represented what I felt was me realizing what was holding me back, which was the idea that I just was not willing to do the growing on the internal. Like I was concerned with what was going on around me. And I wrote this really cool. I wrote this journal entry, and I decided as I was writing it to start layering on some fiction onto it. And the end product became this story, this really cool story called The Black Grasshopper. At the time, Black Grasshopper was also paired with another story called In the Garden with Lizard and Snake. And so these two stories kind of existed in this idea of this garden where all the animals talked and they kind of lived in this community where, everyone kind of minded their business. You just did animal things. And Black Grasshopper had such a impact on me that I was like, man, maybe one day I could, pull it out of myself to like publish a book. Who knows? And then I did that. And then I did another story called Stranger's Ears. And so Stranger's Ears, In the Garden with Lizard and Snake, and Black Grasshopper are kind of these three stories that I created in 2016 that I just have never really put out there. And they're very, very close to my own personal experiences. Stranger's Ears is one of the dopest things I've ever written. And it hasn't been released due to any like imposter syndrome or anything like that. It hasn't been released because it just straight up hasn't been time. And I know that there was going to be a time where I was like, all right, boom, like it's time now, Stranger's Ears. And now is the time. Like now is the time because I've been able to build out how, and I'm gonna just tell you guys how all of this is connected. But Stranger's Ears, I wrote it, and it's about this character, a very bizarre, eccentric character who's just talking about life and how his home was an apartment and then became in a house, and the house keeps changing and it keeps reforming itself, and home visits from therapists keep happening, and every now and then the therapists show up and then they never come back. But in actuality, it's not that they never come back, it's that they never leave. And so I created that story and decided to oddly place in a detail that the character mentions that there is a garden in the back of his throat. I know that sounds crazy. I don't really remember why I did it other than just to kind of create like an Easter egg of like, oh, I was maybe in the future that'll be relevant and that'll be something cool that I want to explore. But he's got a garden in the back of his throat. The garden in the back of his throat is the garden where the lizard and the snake and all that and the black grasshopper and all that kind of stuff. So to finally writing We Missed a Meeting. Long story short, I have dropped just ways to connect these stories all together. And I have since been trying to figure out over the last couple of years how to re-release all of these stories. I've finally figured out what that looks like. And I originally about halfway through third quarter of last year, I decided that I was going to call my story of interconnected storylines one thing, and I've decided that it works better with just a very simple story of the Alex Auguste Omnistory, which is essentially a way that I've kind of created this really cool not only network of stories that connect to each other, but also provide context to how these stories even connect to my life to begin with. And I have not a lot of time, so I'll just kind of slowly break this down. Every author writes their story from some form of perspective of their own. You go into F. Scott Fitzgerald, and F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote The Great Gatsby, and The Great Gatsby is 100% like part of his life. There are pieces of those characters that are him. Stan Lee created the Incredible Hulk because Stan Lee had recognized that he had a temper issue. And so creating the Hulk was almost like a way to kind of put himself into these characters and really empathize with them in a way that like brings them to life and makes them as human as possible. With power comes great responsibility. Same thing with Spider-Man. And so with me, knowing that I was doing that with Black Grasshopper, knowing that I was trying not to do that with We Missed a Meeting, where I didn't want the characters to feel like me. I wanted them to do everything that I wouldn't do, right? And then, eventually a boy bathed them. But all these stories kind of have a piece of myself. I decided to go back and answer the question, why did I start writing? By using my life as the baseline within this whole Omni story thing. And so every story in the Omni story it comes from what's called an origin. We might call it like the universe, the multiverse. I'm not gonna hold y'all. I wanted to do everything in my power not to use that phrase. I feel like it means nothing now. I have had my days of Marvel connection, like, it's because you like Marvel. I've had my day of that. And so what I did was Origin Zero essentially is my life. And if you join my Patreon, I have been writing these like kind of autobiographical blog post called The Death of Mr. Marvel. And The Death of Mr. Marvel talks about how both on one side, I was learning just experiencing life, and then how I kind of took on this name that was very jokingly, but also had to become very critical in my life. This name, Mr. Marvel, and how I eventually dropped it and decided to drop it. And before I fully dropped the name in 2022, I decided to drop the name when I published my first book in 2018. So 4 years of just me kind of being like, yeah, I don't know if they know, but I don't really care for that name anymore. And the name, that decision to do that came from, hey, whose name will I put on this book? People had come to fully know me as Mr. Marvel, like not even knowing that my real name was Alex Auguste. And I don't remember who it was, but shout out to the person who heard my name and was like, that's your name? Like, that shit sounds cooler than Mr. Marvel. Kind of a pat on my back and a pat on my family's back for like, y'all did great. Okay. So that's kind of origin zero. And the idea with the origins is that every origin, that the higher the number goes, the more abstract it is from reality. And so when I did that, man, I kind of really enjoyed it, because while animals talking it's pretty abstract, it's just a garden, and you're just getting the personification of animals. The House of Ezra. There's a really cool story from that group that I still just have in draft form. Fall of the House of Ezra, which is about like these bees that sting a little boy who was attacking them, and a human boy, and he dies from like anaphylactic shock. They don't know it's called that, but they just know that by killing a human, only more humans are coming to the garden, and that means that there's going to be damage and destruction in the garden. And so this council of insects is sitting down and just like, yo, what do we do? Like, can the ants help us like drag this kid off? Can the termites help? Can the bees help? Can the flies help? And this, everyone's trying to figure out. And then there's like a discussion basically about like how one community's problem kind of becomes the whole community's problem. And everyone starts to like argue about like, well, this is y'all doing. At the end of the day, when they come to destroy something, they're going straight to the nest. And it's just a crazy story. But then that's called Origins 9. The garden is Origins 9. The Origins 16. Don't ask why these numbers are the numbers. I'm not going to tell you. But Origins 16 is our We Missed a Meeting universe, where life is kind of dictated by technology. And technology is a tool of racism. And so I'm not going to go deep into that, because I want to save some live streams for these. I want to save content for Patreon for these. But We Missed a Meeting is terrifyingly accurately predicting what we're going through right now. It is absolutely insane. So much of We Missed a Meeting was just written and written and written and written and written. There's so much writing to that story, which is why the second chapter is called Some Assembly Required, because it's literally me piecing together random pages that still end up telling a full story. That's neither here nor there. And then the furthest out origin, which is our third of the three, is Origins 24, where it is very abstract, the universe is sentient. The universe speaks. We learn of cosmic entities and cosmic beings that speak and learn and create. The whole concept of Origins 24 is about the pain of being a creator, or the challenges and trials of being a creator. It starts with an origin story of like creations. It starts with a creation story, and that creation story is just one of those. And such begat such and such begat such and such, to the point where eventually it leads to humans. And so humans have a direct connection to all of that. And there's challenges, and there's characters, and there was war, and all this stuff. And then you meet human characters in all of this, such as John Draco, Sterling John Grace, who is our main character in A Boy Bathed in Blood. And then eventually we learn that the villain in all of Origins 24, rather than being technology and AI like it is in We Missed a Meeting, or like it is a certain type of animal in Origins 9 in the garden, our villain in Origins 24 is our good friend from Stranger's Ears, who is kind of just lost in space. I don't want to give it away. Actually, I am going to give it away. He is a star. He is born a star. And so he is just cosmic dust that finds himself watching, everything unfold, watching the rules be laid out, watching the rules be broken, and deciding that, hey, with my stance in the universe, I get to make these decisions, which correlates to the AI piece, where it's like, if you think about it, we tell AI so much. And it's almost like that Age of Ultron kind of thing, where it's like, as we're telling AI so much, it's like, we better hope that it never makes the sentient decision of just like, after all of that stuff you told me, I would like to make a decision about how you're breaking the rules. I'd like to make a decision about the history that I know about you and things like that. So very big kind of ambitious project of having these three very big chunks of literature kind of living into one thing called the Omnistory. But at the same time, too, the beauty of it and what I'm very proud of myself on is that, like, so much of it is already written. So much of it is already written, and really the rest of it is just packaging it and kind of putting that out and giving it to the world. So I've given myself through 2030. I know that sounds crazy, but like the way these last 5 years have passed, I probably should hurry up and start planning for the next 5 years. So I'm giving myself till 2030 to really start just, put out as much of these as possible. And the first one, like I said, that I really am happy to put out, finally happy and still nervous, is the Black Grasshopper. So that, like I said, a very personal story of mine. And I plan on releasing that just very quietly, nothing big, but just want to make that available to everyone in the month of March. So I'll be posting a lot about that in Patreon, and that'll be available for you all to check out, love, watch, and everything like that. So that was a lot, I know. But when you're creative and things keep you up at night, bruh, like you just do it. It sounds crazy, but it sounds dope to people. And again, just thinking of how do we contribute? There's so much social commentary in everything that I've ever created. Ever. I don't think I ever create anything that doesn't have social commentary. So can't wait to get you guys eyes on that and have that exist in the world in all of its entirety and all of its glory. So I've come to the top of the hour. I've come to the bottom of the show, and that means that it is time for me to look at my watch and take care of some other business that I have to tend to. But nonetheless, man, anytime I come on here and I stream, it feels good to just release this information, to go down a stream of consciousness, and to have this exist, have these thoughts exist on the internet, be able to chop it up, share it across all of the platforms and everything like that. So with that being said, man, I look forward to having you guys on Sunday. Let's just double check. On Sunday, I'll be going live again, doing what I like to call the 4-hour stream event. And that's going to be one part of my subathon to help drive you guys to check out some of that Patreon content, as well as joining my Discord. So I look forward to that. And I definitely want to get you guys on board with all of that. Think about what I've said. I hope it resonates. I hope it means something to you. Happy Black History Month. And remember, go out there and be dope past February.